All right. So we also went over this little thing. This isn't like a permanent sensory sheet we're going to be using. And again, credit where credit's due. This is kind of loosely based off of Seattle Beer School's beer tasting sheet. But this is what I asked everyone to use for the beer we sent home. It's a good way, it's very cerebral, so it's a good way to start making those connections between like your memories and your initial reactions, and how is that coming from the aroma, how is that coming from the flavor maybe, or the mouthfeel. We did talk about mouthfeel, which I guess I'll shoot another video about. Okay. But then looking at all of the words and all the descriptors that you used up here, putting those things together to give the overall perception and any maybe deductions that you can parse together based on your experience, based on what you're tasting. Like, was there an issue with quality control? Was there an issue with yeast characteristic or hop characteristic, based on what you were tasting here? And again, full disclosure, the beer I sent home, one of them was, when we start our canning run, we have to purge the line. So that first case or so is usually comes across as oxidized, and they oxidize really quickly. So we pull those initially, because we don't want to send those out to the market. So the beer that was tagged A was a beer that was from that first pull, and we also left it out at room temperature, so that would increase and speed up the oxidation process. And oxidation is an off flavor we will be going over. Oxidation usually comes across as stale cardboard or papery. So if you literally think about putting a piece of cardboard in your mouth, like, and chewing on it, that's that flavor in beer is oxidation. The second one was product that we have on the shelves. So being able to taste the difference between that oxidized one and the product that's on the shelves is, again, one of the main goals of doing this sensory. So that's why I sent both home and wanted to see what everyone's kind of reactions were on both. These sheets are available at the brewery. You can always grab another one, or again, you can make this at home. This is just a very like cursory kind of thing. We will, for long-term, be using the program Draft Lab. So once I get that uploaded, I will share the link with people, and we'll be using that program, which is a more consolidated version of that. So this week we are going over off flavors. We only have a 4 off flavor pack because we just kind of wanted to focus on the 4 main off flavors that are apparent out in the market, or that are most predominant. Off flavors occur when there is usually a lot of it ties to the yeast. So usually it's a yeast health issue, or a storage issue. So those are QC, QA. These are issues that we can solve on our brewery. So again, we're kind of focusing on off flavors that are things that we can solve, so that I can train you on those. So if you ever come across it in any of our product, we can be alerted and we can solve that issue. If we do end up continuing doing sensoring panels, maybe doing even more of these classes, we'll start delving into some of the other off flavors. But again, we're focusing on the 4 main ones. Today, I kind of want to go over diacetyl and oxidation. I believe those are the 2. I might be wrong. So we're only doing 2 at a time because it can be kind of really and difficult when you do too many in one go. Your tongue basically, your flavor receptors in your tongue basically gets like overworked, and you start tasting butyric acid where there should be oxidation, and everything starts getting jumbled up in your head, which makes it harder to connect those pathways. I do not recommend doing a bunch of off flavors ever in one go, because it will muddle those memory pathways we're trying to create. So like it'll create its own pathways, basically, like I said. So every time you taste butyric acid, for some reason your brain thinks oxidation because you sat down and did all of them back to back to back. I do not recommend that. So we will be doing just 2 off flavors at a time, and that will be this week and not next week. We're taking a break for the holidays, and then we'll come back the week after and we'll do the last 2, which I don't remember off the top of my head because I'm having a rough day. So I recommend coming with a blank palate, no food, no coffee, really rinse well, no beer this time in the back, because it's going to be really important to have all of our sensory tasting like keyed in for doing this. And again, this class might take a little longer because it's going to be really focused on the tasting part. and taking our time taking those notes, because these ones are important to make sure you're building a strong connection with that flavor, as awful as it tastes, because it's one of those things, like, I want people to be able to pick it up every single time they taste it, at different levels. There's like, everyone has a different threshold of parts per million that they can start tasting it. So you might hear some people be like, oh, I'm diacetyl sensitive. That just kind of means that they have a very low parts per million threshold for tasting diacetyl. So again, we're gonna try and we're gonna taste a very strong version, but I do recommend doing, like, at home, tasting things that you may think have a bit of diacetyl to see if you can taste lower amounts. But basically we do a really strong version of it to really punch those neurons and be like, this is it. No mistaking, that's diacetyl, to help build that memory connection for your palate. So that's what we're doing today. Like I said, please come in with clean and fresh, and we will get started pretty quickly because this one will take a bit longer today. All right, cheers guys.